Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Troy Show. I am back again, and I am glad to have you with me today. I typically do not enjoy getting into debates because I'm just not a good debater. I just don't do it well. I get intimidated, and a lot of the times, a lot of these debates just kind of end up with me in some corner with a box of cookies and a Kleenex box and just crying, just weeping, because I'm not good at it. My feelings get hurt easily, and I'm just a baby, a big, fat baby with a lot of back hair and lately, some nose hair. But I am thankful for the nose hair trimmers that I received for Christmas about 5 or 6 years ago. That, my friends, has come in very handy. My wife doesn't like to have the hair sticking out because what it looks like, it literally looks like there is some kind of insect inside my nose trying to crawl itself out, trying to make a way for it. My nose is crooked anyways. One nostril is a little bit bigger than the other one because my septum, I guess, is crooked, or so. It's hard to describe it, but my nose is crooked, and it makes the hair look like some kind of alien trying to get out. And it might be. I don't know. I think it's hair. I shave it, but it keeps coming back. So I just don't know. I don't have a good answer for you on this. So what are the debates that have been going on around the O'Donohoe Ranch? Well, it really just one, and it has a lot to do with the Duggar family. Now, a lot of you know the Duggar family. The Duggar family has the show on TLC, or actually, this just in. They were dropped. I think either Saturday night or Saturday afternoon or something like that. They were dropped. They are not on the on the station anymore, on the network. Likely because of what has happened recently with one of their sons. Allegedly, he molested some of his sisters back when he was a teenager. Maybe when he was 14 or 15. I don't know the age. The age is not important. But what is important is that he confessed to doing this. He molested a couple of his sisters, or a sister, or whatever the case is. Apparently, he got some help, and he was referred to some kind of camp, and he spoke to police. Anyways, all these years ago, this was settled. And recently it came out. I don't know the details of how it came out. Maybe someone found something of him saying something about it years ago or whatever. But it's come out, and he's being dragged through the mud again. And so my wife had a debate with a few ladies on Facebook about this, and because of an article that was written on theblaze.com. Theblaze.com is a libertarian site, so they kind of lean conservative, but a lot of people view it just as a conservative page with only conservative or Republican principles. So that's kind of the framework we're working with here. But the writer is Matt Walsh, and he wrote an article about this, and so I contacted a couple of these ladies that my wife was debating with, and I'm hoping that I will have an episode with their thoughts on this. I will not be speaking with them. I've asked if they would to just leave a voicemail on the official Troy Show voicemail, 707-874-TROY. And let's just look now. I'll check my email to see if any of them have responded, and I would be interested to do this. Not because I want to bash them, I made it clear to them that was not the point. The point was, the point of the Troy show is I want to get in culture different points of views. Because there's so many things that happen in the culture, there's so many things that happen in politics that need to be discussed. And Christians need to have their viewpoint out there, because I believe Christians have the correct point of view. Now, that is my opinion, but then again, my opinion is the only opinion that I know. If you listen to the Troy show and you are not a believer, but you listen to this because you think I'm a hack or you think I'm some kind of idiot or whatever, that's great. That's your opinion, and you are entitled to that opinion. But it is your opinion. An opinion is something that you from life experience, you have come to this thought process. And so if you think I'm a hack or a fraud or whatever, and you hate my guts, well, that's your opinion. That does not mean it's right, because it's an opinion. Opinions are not necessarily right. They can be wrong. So I've invited them to give me their thoughts on the article, because the article is an interesting one. And if we get their opinion or not, I will still talk to you about the article. But in the meantime, what I want to talk tonight about is life choices. How do we get to the places we end up? Because we make decisions in life, and we all have decisions that we are either proud of or we make decisions that we regret. There are some people who make decisions that have unbelievably irreversible consequences. And you cannot go back and fix what you've done. We've all done that. I've spoken a recent episode a while back, a few episodes back, where I made a mistake. A few years ago, about 4 years ago, I made a mistake. I chose to act in a specific way, and it destroyed relationships, had the potential to destroy my marriage. But we, my wife and I believe we are okay now. But we have lost in the process a very valuable relationship to us, a relationship that we were actually going to name our son. If our son was a girl, we were going to name our son, our daughter, after this, after one of the people in this couple, the lady in this couple. But that relationship is destroyed. It will not be fixed. Cannot be fixed. This is a couple that we had dinner with regularly, that we hung out with regularly. But because of a mistake that I made 4 years ago, I still live with the consequences of that mistake. I have not been able to get past it. I still feel the regret and the sadness of what I've done. I know the great scheme of things in the Christian worldview. I know what the Bible says, that I have been forgiven, because believe me, I have begged and pleaded for forgiveness. So deep inside, on a theological level, I am aware that I have been forgiven and that I am redeemed. But on a mental level, on a human being level, I don't feel it. It's hard to feel it. And so I've often asked, what would life be like today had I not screwed up? Where would I be right now? What would life be like right now? And you can probably ask yourself the same question, because I am certain that everybody has made some kind of mistake that they regret, some kind of mistake that has formed their life and taken them down a path that you can't go back from. And if you haven't, praise God. That is, you're living life better than me. But that's one of the issues that came up in this debate about the Duggars. He's a child molester. But does he ever get a new reality for him? Will he always be known as a child molester? Will he ever get his identity back? Will he ever be able to continue his life without media people bringing up this drudge of history back into his life again? Because if he is truly a Christian and his heart has been saved by God and so he is a true believer, then yes, he regrets what happens. And so I can only imagine the sadness and despair and sense of loss that he felt after he realized what he did. I'm sure he knew at the time what he was doing was wrong. But as I've said before, the body wants what it wants when it wants it. And when the body wants what it wants, it takes control of the person. The mind may say, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, stay away from it. But the body gets what it wants. It always does. Unless you are able to train the body to obey the mind. And most times it doesn't. Most times people find themselves in the same circumstances that I am in. And they find themselves in the same circumstances that my friend Terry Messick found himself in. Terry was he was a good guy. He was a good kid. He was my age. We were on the same football team together. We played for the Hendersonville Hurricanes. I was the now, ladies, I'm married, so don't be emailing me asking me for pictures of me to see how good looking I am or how buff I am, because I'm not. I'm a normal, average person. But in those days, in my elementary school, late elementary school, and early middle school days, I was the quarterback for the Hendersonville Hurricanes and backup quarterback, but I was also the fullback, okay, for the Hendersonville Hurricanes, huh? Trey O'Donohoe, eat your heart out. My brother was the football star all through middle school and high school. But you know what? He may have gotten written up in the newspapers every week talking about how great he was going to be and predicting how many yards he was going to run. But you know what? I won the Herbie the Eagle Award at church camp one year. So stick that in your pipe and smoke it, Trey O'Donohoe. Jerk. Stupid head, fatty. I don't know what else to call him. But Terry was on the team, and we became good friends, and we hung out together, and we spent the night at each other's houses from time to time. But I remember that Terry was a kid who he was an angry kid. And that may be why he excelled on the football field. He put his rage into the game. He was a hard hitter. And he was proud of that. And he was a good player. But I don't know what his family life was like. I don't know anything about that. I just remember him being an angry kid. And I remember at my grandmother's house, I received a call from him one day where he told me that he was considering killing himself. Now this is a middle school kid. I mean, I would have to think the demons he must be fighting, the loneliness and the darkness in his mind that he must have had to fight that young, saying that he was going to kill himself. Now, I don't know if it was true or if it was just some desperate plea for somebody to pay attention to him. I don't know, but somehow I convinced him not to do it. I'm not a psychologist. I think I probably just said something like, don't do it. And he said, okay, and we hung up, and I had spaghetti dinner that night, which I probably choked on, because in my lifetime, I have a normal person has learned early in life not to chew their food. I have choked in my life at least 5 times, like severe choking. I gulped a huge chunk of apple down my throat, and it literally stopped in my throat. I could not breathe. I could not get anything down. Immediately, I panicked, and I ran down the hallway just gagging and trying to get it up, and my grandmother saved the day by literally sticking her finger down my throat and saved my life. And then we had cherry cheesecake afterwards. I remember that because there were little strips of red strawberry in there that when I looked at it at the time, I thought that the other option to get the apple out was to cut my head off, and so the red reminded me of blood, and so I remember that clearly. I've also choked on pork chop and potato chip, so I've done a lot of choking in my time. Where were we? Why did I go that direction? So somehow I convinced him not to do it, and life continued. We graduated from high school. I don't remember much about him during high school, but we went our separate ways. I mean, we were not friends. We were more acquaintances near the end of our high school days. But he went his way, and I went my way, and I went to college, and I'm not sure where he went after high school. But in 1999, I heard the story of what he did. The moment in his life that defined where his life would go and where he would end up. You talk about momentary decisions, possibly planned out for weeks, but in a single moment, a person's life can be completely, irreversibly changed. And that is what happened to Terry Messick. Detective Lynn Hicks was shot and killed after being ambushed at a domestic disturbance call. He had not been dispatched to the call, but responded because he was in the area. After exiting his vehicle, he was approaching the residence when a second suspect, it doesn't mention his name, but it was Terry Messick. After exiting his vehicle, he was approaching the residence when a second suspect, who was waiting in the vehicle outside, recognized him as an officer and shot him in the head. Detective Hicks was unaware the second suspect was involved. The suspect who shot Detective Hicks, Terry Messick, had murdered his estranged wife an hour earlier and was waiting for a friend to murder his estranged girlfriend. While the friend was in the residence, the daughter had called 911. Both suspects fled after Detective Hicks was murdered, but were captured several hours later and sentenced to life without parole. So that was a moment in his life where I don't know what was going on in his head. I don't know what decisions, how he had to convince himself to do what he did. He murdered his wife. Maybe at that point it was easy to just murder a cop. But his life was now defined for him. This was now going to be the person that he would be. From that point on, he would always be a murderer. And this was brought up on Facebook of a friend of mine's Facebook page because it was the anniversary of that happening. May the 22nd. And he talked about how he knew Terry from high school and that he knew the detective that was shot and how great the detective was and how great Terry was and how crazy this is. And as I look at all the comments of the Facebook page, I read stuff like, we used to race BMX together. He was part of our little biker group, and we were inseparable for a few years. I was even with him when he got hit by a car on Gallatin Road. Somebody else says, I was good friends with Terry in our early teen years. I, too, remember this day. I was shocked when it happened. Someone else, still hard for me to understand. I spent a lot of time with him. He was always at my friend's house. And on it goes. People talk about how good he was, how confused they were, how shocked they were at this, because this happens all the time where somebody does something horrible and then their neighbors get interviewed and they say, I don't know, I'm shocked that this happened. Because the human race is such a confusing life force. We have the ability to show the beauty of life and grace and to show how wonderful we are, and we can be complete liars and fool everybody around us into believing that about us. But deep inside, many of us, there's a darker side that you will not bring out to the open. There's a darker side of a lot of people that they will never reveal to anybody else. And it's a side of their life. It's a side of my life that we look at and we hate and we despise. And inside of our own hearts, we feel that side reflects who we are as a person. Now, I don't know what Terry was like in those days. I read a lot of stuff about how he was a drug abuser and he had lived a lot of those final years in freedom. Very angry. He was just an angry person. And that a lot of people saying that what caused him to go to those angry places were the drugs. That drugs forced him to do this. That drugs made him do this. I don't know. I don't know how to feel about that. I've never done drugs. I don't know what effects they can really have on a person's mind. I do know that all people have a choice to make a good decision or to make a bad decision. My decision was bad. I made the decision, and it has ruined my life for a lot of years. Terry made a decision. I can't confidently say that he had a choice. I don't know. I don't know what drugs does. Maybe you do. Maybe you can call and give me some voice to this, 707-874-TROY, and give me a better idea of what it might be like to be on drugs and what it does do to a person's mind. Maybe it does enslave you. Maybe your brain does go to places that you cannot control. I don't know. But Terry is now a murderer. That is now his label. People, the family of the police officer that was killed will always look at Terry Messick as the man who killed their husband, their dad, their brother, their uncle. He will never be anything else to them but a killer. And that label is deserving because what he did was horrible. In the view of man, in the view of humanity, what he did was horrible. But, and we'll talk about this some in the article with the Duggar kid. Can a person ever regain his identity back? Can a person ever become what he was before he made the mistake that he made? Some people will say absolutely not. If you are a child molester, that is what you are. You cannot be redeemed from that. You are a molester. For the family of this police officer, I don't see them ever having dinner with Terry Messick. Unless there is some incredible, miraculous redemption in this entire situation with both Terry and the family, I don't ever see a nice dinner happening here. There are a lot of cases, miraculous cases, where mothers whose sons have been killed end up embracing the person who killed her son. There are stories like that where people do experience the grace, experience true forgiveness, and are able to continue with their lives. But there are a lot of people who can't. Now, I have heard that Terry has become a believer in prison, that he is a Christian now. And for him, if this is true, if he has given his heart to Christ, then yes, he is forgiven. I will never understand this. I will never in my life be able to truly understand how forgiveness works. Because a lot of times when someone gets forgiven, it's something that in my view, in a lot of people's view, is not deserving of forgiveness. Murder, in my view, is not worthy of forgiveness, cannot be forgiven. But there are things that God sees that I can't see. For us, murder is the end of life. It's it. It's done. You've taken somebody's life. But in God's view, life doesn't end. If you kill somebody, you kill their body. Their soul continues somewhere. Now, the horror in this is what happened. Was that person prepared to die? And I think that's a good question for all of us. If your life is coming to that collision, is your soul prepared? Is your soul ready? I hope so. And I hope that we are able somehow, in the mistakes that we have made, I hope and I pray, even for myself, that we are able to take the label that we give ourselves, that other people give us, and we're able to put it to the side, and that we can live our lives freely without worrying about the things we have done in our past. If you are redeemed, if you have fixed the problem, if you are no longer that person, praise God. I hope you can continue your life. But there is a lot of people who will not let you. They will not. If you molested a kid, you deserve to be punished for that. And it's hard for me to say because I try to protect my children. And I try to keep them in situations where this will never happen to them. And if it does ever happen to them, God forbid anything like that ever happens to my daughter or my sons. I hope that I can look at that person and say, I forgive you. I hope my children, if they understand what happens, they can say, I forgive you. Because the forgiveness is not for that person. I could care less if they accept the forgiveness. The forgiveness is me letting go of that problem, getting rid of the anger, and being able to live my life. The problem with the mistake that I made, the bad judgment call that I made a few years ago, was based on the situation and based on the people who were kind of in charge of, getting our lives back together, getting our lives going again. Would not allow me to speak to them. I was not able to speak to them. I have not been able to say, I'm sorry. I have not been able to accept any forgiveness if they do forgive me. I have not been able to get any of that. And I think that's one of the biggest problems of this whole ordeal for me is I have not been able to ask for forgiveness, or I've not been able to receive it. But we all need forgiveness. If we've messed up, we need forgiveness. We need it. Our bodies, our minds, our souls, our spirits, our hearts, we need to be able to be forgiven for the mistakes that we made, especially mistakes that we cannot seem to get past. Forgiveness is a powerful thing, but it's not for the person, the forgiveness is for you. The forgiveness is for you. So I would love to know if you have any thoughts on any of these things, especially if like I said, if you have been on drugs and like really hardcore drugs that it does things to you. If you want to kind of call and leave a voicemail and just kind of inform me on if it's true that Terry had no choice, that the drugs made him do it, I would love to know this. 707-874-TROY. Call and leave a voicemail. It's a voicemail. You don't talk to me. You leave it straight with a voicemail service. You don't talk to anybody. It's Google. I don't think anybody works for Google. There's a bunch of robots anyways. To do that, Facebook.com/The Troy Show, thetroyshow.podbean.com. You can go to Stitcher, type in The Troy Show. You can go to SoundCloud and search for Troy Odon. You can go to iTunes, look for The Troy Show, and subscribe. I mean, there are so many ways that you can be a fan of The Troy Show. So tell all your friends about it. Tell your mama and your daddy and your greasy granny. I don't know what that means. I had somebody say that to me one time. It sounds gross, though. So, until we meet again, take care.